What was your worst Christmas ever? Story 1. On December 12, 1999, I was feeling drowsy after having the family's favorite dinner. Homemade chicken chalupas. I passed out, excited for the next day of school, another step closer to Christmas. I dozed peacefully, dreaming of all the Pokemon cards and memorabilia I would get in less than 2 weeks. After sleeping for maybe 2 hours, I was suddenly awakened. It was a firefighter. My room was illuminated by red and white flashing lights, and I panicked, thinking our apartment was on fire. He picked me up out of bed, threw me over his shoulder as I clung to my precious bear. He kept reassuring me that everything was going to be okay. Outside our apartment, uniformed officers, firefighters, and what I know as military investigators, given that my dad was in the military, were everywhere. I was led to my neighbor's apartment, who happened to be my best friend. He greeted me with enthusiasm, and we headed off to play some Super Smash Bros. On his N64. Staying up late playing video games on a school night? Absolutely. We played for about an hour, and then his mom popped in, grabbed my friend, and said my mom needed to talk to me. He was let out, the light was turned off. I sat on the bottom bunk in a room illuminated only by moonlight through the window. I remembered it being a cold, clear Arizona night. My mom came in quietly, somberly. She sat next to me. I can see her face clearly now, her eyes puffy, her nose red. Daddy's gone. I remained silent, unable to grasp what was happening. Where did he go? Just a few hours ago, he was here. I knew his job was tough. He appeared low when he returned, had dinner, and watched TV with us. His routine after dinner always involved a cigar and a glass of wine on the back porch. I hugged him goodnight, excited about our plans to go rollerblading the next day. But now, he's gone? Daddy was very sad. He hurt himself. He passed away an hour ago. She reached for my hand and I noticed red stains on her sleeve. My dad's. That night, I lost my dad. We just decorated the Christmas tree. Since then, I haven't celebrated until this year. Don't take your loved ones for granted. Give them an extra tight hug and say I love you one more time because schizophrenia or not, you truly never know. Story 2. I headed over to my friend Sean's place for a pre-Christmas dinner one year, dubbed Fake Christmas because I'd be out of the country on the actual day. The fun began before I even reached their house. I could already hear the swearing and yelling from the other end of the road. To cut a long story short, Sean is the middle boy among 6 sisters, and Ivy's the youngest. Consequently, he's incredibly protective of her. There's this local guy named Colum who has an ongoing feud with Sean, and because they despise each other, Sean has strictly forbidden Ivy from dating that guy. Ivy, being herself, this only fueled her desire for him even more. So as it turns out, Sean's mother sent him to pick up Ivy from her friend's house as dinner was almost ready. He arrives and the friend says, "Oh no, she's at Colum's, not here." Sean gets furious. He returns to the car, drives to Colum's place, and knocks on the door. Colum answers with Ivy standing beside him. Sean loses it, lands a punch in Colum's nose and knocks him out cold. So step into their house and it's chaos. Sean and Ivy are at the top of their lungs. "Oh my God, Sean, do you want to ruin my life? Everyone's going to be laughing at me." "You're the one ruining your life. Hanging out with Colum?" His dad's yelling at one of the 3 uncles who live with him about taking the car out the night before and coming back the next morning without it, having no memory of ever having it at all. His mom's in the kitchen screaming, "You've all ruined my lovely dinner. I hope you're happy." Meanwhile, his granny's on the couch munching on mince pies, watching Come Dine With Me, muttering under her breath, "Ooh, his raspberry roll-aid's a bit wonky. He's going to lose points for that." Later on in the festivities, Granny drank all of Sean's dad's whiskey out of spite, ending up behind the Christmas tree sick. Sean's dad was in tears, partially due to the excellent whiskey. Granny let me sneak a few swigs and then took all the blame for me. The car was found several miles outside town in a wet, slushy ditch. However, the highlight was undeniably when, after enduring 4 hours of the annoying motorized Santa Granny wanted bingo going off repeatedly, Sean's uncle suddenly pulled out a weapon. Obliterated Santa, rolled his eyes and said, "Ho day freaking ho to you too, you wee effing claws." That's why Santa never swings by your house, kids. Uncle took him down ages ago. Story 3. My mom really doesn't enjoy the holidays. Most of the family she's lost passed away sometime in December, so Christmas feels like a game of Russian roulette to her. She might either be okay or end up having a meltdown and start taking Vicodin like in the good old days. 2010 Christmas was one of the rough ones. And when I say rough, I mean the absolute worst. I lived across the country and landed a good job immediately after Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, that meant cutting my trip home short. I was only back for a total of 2 days and had to leave on Christmas Day at midday so I could work on the 26th. We woke up on Christmas morning and it was clear my mom had taken a cocktail of prescriptions to cope with the day. I'd reached my limit. She didn't care about drinking and smoking, but there she was, taking a variety of painkillers. I confronted her about it, and everything went haywire. We didn't talk for the remainder of the day until my layover in O'Hare. I ended up getting into it on Facebook with my brother, who made some snide remarks about the drama. Then my dad called from his business trip to yell at me for stirring things up, followed by my mom calling and screaming at me. I found myself yelling and crying in the middle of the international concourse at O'Hare. French people were staring at me while I was bawling, and all I wanted was to leave. Being a nervous flyer already, I noticed some lake effect snow rolling in. We happened to be the last plane out before they closed the airport. Our wheels skidded on the icy runway as we barely gathered enough speed to take off. I was hyperventilating, and the flight attendants ended up getting me buzzed. The highlight of that entire day was when my roommate picked me up and we spent the rest of the night drinking and smoking by the pool. Story 4. Last year, following a series of all-nighters and a week of finals, I returned home to work at my retail job. I pulled a few more all-nighters and then caught a severe flu on Christmas Eve. I spent the next 24 hours sick in the shower and lying in bed or on the floor while my joyless older sister complained about how I didn't deserve a decent dinner or any presents, and so on. She kept picking fights with me throughout the day while I couldn't even eat or move. She's sick this year, though. I'm not going to be a dirtbag. Also, 2 years ago, we experienced a house fire in late November and spent the following 8 months in a rental house. We lost almost everything, but we still had our health and each other. Things were challenging, but we managed. However, the same sibling mentioned earlier didn't change her behavior and spent the entire day yelling at my mom. She complained about not receiving her gifts, cursed at my mom for not arranging a train ticket before the snowstorm hit, cursed at me for defending my mom, then cursed at my mom again. And she's 28. And putting that mean Grinch of a sister on Santa's naughty list makes her receive lots of coal. Having a crummy sibling seems like the worst part of any family reunion, but Story 7 proves that it's not just people who can ruin the holiday vibe. Story 5. You've got to laugh at these things. Last year around December, I had to undergo rather uncomfortable surgery on my backside. It took 3 months to heal and required daily dressing changes. So on Christmas morning, I found myself desperately trying not to end up in a waiting room at the local walk-in center. I was acutely aware that I didn't want to be there, and chances were the nurse tasked with changing my dressings didn't want to be there either. So I decided to bring some humor into the situation by using a Sharpie to write Merry Christmas across my cheeks. Turns out my backside isn't that spacious, so I had to settle for Merry Xmas. Plus, since I was doing it using a mirror before leaving, it ended up looking more like random squiggles than spreading Christmas cheer. In the end, I got a trainee nurse who, as it turned out, had no sense of humor and absolutely no idea how to change the dressing. I had to lie face down with my Christmas message on display for 20 minutes while she clumsily figured out how to remove a ribbon from my backside. Then another 10 minutes while she looked for someone else to insert a new one. Story 6. It was Christmas of 2006. The movie Aragon had just been released and my entire family planned to see it. We lived just a block or two away from the movie theater, so we intended to walk there. My dad, my 2 siblings, and I were waiting for my mom, who had gone back inside the house after a fight with my dad. I was only so young, and though aware of things like divorce, whenever my parents had a really bad fight, I would ask if they were getting a divorce. Naturally, they always said no, but I was constantly worried regardless. This time when I asked my dad, he didn't provide an answer. When my mom finally emerged, we walked in complete silence, the only sound being the crunching snow under our feet. After the movie, we returned home, opened our presents with the same Christmas cheer as always, or as we used to. The kids went to bed. My parents stayed up, talking, but it soon turned into a fight. By then, I had grown accustomed to tuning them out and falling asleep. It was 12 a.m. I was woken up by my mom entering my room, in tears. I asked what was wrong, and she said, "Your father and I are getting a divorce." That remains the worst Christmas of my life. Story 7. The year the cat ran up the Christmas tree and couldn't get down. The dog thought it was playtime. He ran full speed across my living room and launched into the Christmas tree to play with the cat. I have an English Mastiff that weighs about 150 pounds right now. The tree stood no chance. Ornaments. Ornaments were everywhere. The cat bolted as soon as the tree hit the ground and the dog followed. There were crushed presents, shattered ornaments, and pine needles everywhere. That was the last year we had a real tree. We bought a fake fold-out one the next year, so the cat no longer sniffed around and climbed into it. It don't really ruin Christmas, but it definitely wasn't a good way to spend Christmas morning. Makes for a good story, though. What a mess. Pets can be really crazy gremlins sometimes. Here's hoping your Christmas won't be a disaster like this one. Make sure to spread some holiday cheer by subscribing to my channel today. Don't forget to hit the notification bell too so you won't miss a single video. Alright, let's go back to our stories. Story 8. I haven't had a nice Christmas since I was a little kid. This year I'm spending it alone. My family lives 4,500 miles away in a different country. I haven't received a gift from my family during the holidays for years. Just a Merry Christmas text and a "You too" response. I have no friends whatsoever. My husband, who is the only one here, is working a night shift tonight. Just came home this morning from a 12-hour shift, so I have to be quiet in the house until this evening so he can sleep. We have no presents, a Christmas tree, decorations, or traditions. I can't go to my in-laws for Christmas celebrations because his mother hates me and doesn't want me to attend, so I'm not allowed. Although he's expected to go over there for dinner and gifts for himself, and she's spamming his phone with calls to try to wake him up and go there. I might make myself some egg fried rice for dinner tonight and drink until I can't feel anything anymore like the past few nights. To hell with Christmas. Story 9. Christmas 2006. All I received for that Christmas was a pair of diabetic socks, even though I'm not diabetic, from my mom and a dual-purpose bum or face towel from my dad. No, my family's not anywhere close to poverty. I feel a bit ungrateful when I tell that story, but my dad earns around $200,000 a year and my mom makes $70,000 a year, So it's not like it's a significant burden. It's just thoughtless. It was my second year of college and I was putting myself through school and scholarships. I definitely could have used the money. Lol. Story 10. A few years ago, it was all a bit blurry to me. We were extremely tight on money. My mom was hardly ever home because she had to work long hours just to cover the car insurance or electricity bills. Our power had been out for about a week, so we had no food in the fridge. My brother and sister were at their father's house. My mom received some information from my therapist and went to a church up the street from us. We're not religious, but they were a huge help. We received 2 bags of donated toys from my brother and sister. I used the money I received from other family members to buy food at the dollar store. It might not be as bad as some situations, but it truly hurt me to see my mom struggling so hard to get by. We're in a much better place now, and I couldn't be more grateful. Story 11. Christmas 2000. When I was a child, I dashed into my mom and dad's room, all excited to open presents. Unfortunately, I tripped over a rug and banged my teeth against the bedpost in my rush. I lost one tooth, fortunately just a baby tooth, and fractured another. I spent 6 hours waiting in the hospital for a specialist to arrive. Sadly, I didn't get to open any of my presents and had to sip my Christmas dinner through a straw. To this day, I still have the bedpost, marked with 3 clear and distinct teeth imprints. I guess the tooth fairy doesn't have holiday vacations. Story 12. So one year, my brother unwrapped a swimming fin, just one, and it was broken and sun-dried. My dad was surprised by this gift my mom had picked out. We were going through a tough financial time, and that year my brother received something my mom found on the beach. My dad expressed frustration, saying, "Christ, Lori, what's he supposed to do with that? Swim around in circles?" My mom got upset, broke into tears, and apologized to us kids for the not-so-great presents. My brother and I can laugh about it now, but that story still brings a mix of emotions. Story 13. Last year was worse than this year, and both were bad. We lost our oldest child in an accident last December. In December, my husband was laid off for a few weeks, then went on strike for a few weeks in April. We were and still are fighting for closure. The sale date was the 21st, and we barely managed to fight it off. My health took a huge nosedive and hasn't really recovered, due to rheumatoid arthritis and fibro. This year, my husband got hurt at work, and we were fighting just to get treatment. My disabled daughter's SSI came up for some kind of review that has me filling out a ton of paperwork, because apparently, mental retardation and Williams syndrome magically disappear after 3 years. I'm also applying again for another housing modification. This is the 4th time, and dealing with workman's comp issues. We have piles of paperwork, medical bills, lawyer bills, and to top it all off, the roof in our upstairs bathroom caved in due to massive water damage. My life, right? Story 14. In 2010, we had Christmas lunch with my mom's family, and my grandfather, who I was really close to, was there. Sadly, his health hadn't been good. During the meal, he suddenly had a paranoid delusion that his wife was trying to harm him. He was typically a gentleman, but that afternoon, he was cursing, screaming, and wouldn't let anyone near him. We had to quickly usher the younger kids out of the house as my mom and uncle tried desperately to calm him down. It was incredibly difficult seeing him like that. He passed away a month later. Later on, just to add to the chaos, I found myself driving through a snowstorm to and from my other grandmother's house. The reason? Well, my youngest cousin, who tends to be a bit spoiled, was throwing a fit and refusing to eat the Christmas turkey. My dad requested that I make the trek back home through the snow just to pick up a baggie of leftover ham we had saved from lunch, all because that brat didn't want to eat the Christmas dinner. Story 15. In 2008, I came down with the flu and had to wear a surgical mask. Additionally, my deadbeat dad went to jail. On Christmas morning, I discovered my beloved pet parakeet cold in the bottom of his cage. My neighbors glanced out their back window that day to witness a tearful 17-year-old wearing a pink bathrobe and a mask, holding a funeral for a bird in the midst of a blizzard. Then I had a 102-degree fever. I threw up all over my present and got rushed to the hospital due to dehydration. On top of all that, I didn't get a GameCube. Man, that year was rough. That was seriously not a Merry Christmas. Story 16. In 2008, just a couple of months after separating from my wife, I found myself away from my kids for the first time during Christmas. I was living hours away from my parents and the rest of my family, feeling utterly alone in my small, dismal apartment. There were no presents, and to add to it, I was battling bronchitis along with a pulled rib muscle, causing extreme pain every time I coughed. With no internet or cable due to financial constraints, I spent the day drinking a bottle of cheap vodka and watching It's a Wonderful Life in VHS, tears streaming down my face. The rest of the day felt like defeat as I lay on the couch, overwhelmed and filled with a sense of hopelessness. Story 17. In 2006, as a reservist in the Air National Guard stationed on active duty at Nellis Air Force Base, I experienced an entire week without my family or friends. The days were spent playing GTA San Andreas, as everyone I knew was either with their families or occupied with work. It turned out to be the loneliest and most monotonous Christmas I've ever had. Story 18. 2 years ago, my boyfriend of 2.5 years broke up with me via text on Christmas Eve night. It was pretty tough having to smile around my family the next day, pretending as if nothing had happened. I'm gay and my parents were unaware of the relationship. We ended up reuniting until the following February when he pulled me aside in the middle of my friend's party to end things. Yeah, he's truly a selfish dirtbag. Story 19. In 2010, I had just moved to a new city when all my living arrangements fell apart, leaving me unable to find work. This worsened my depression and anxiety. I spent Christmas and New Year's in a state of homelessness, unemployment, and desperation, 5,000 kilometers away from my family, residing in a medium-term shelter. On that evening, my ex took me for Chinese food, and the shelter staff arranged a small Christmas dinner for me and another resident. It was my first Christmas away from my family, and it deeply affected me. However, not long after New Year's, my life began to improve, and things are okay now. This year isn't going great either. I'm away from my family, and most of my friends are out of town, so I'm spending Christmas opening presents on Skype with my mom. Not sure if it's pathetic or innovative. I'm planning to get a bit tipsy with my cat and attending a potluck with mostly strangers. Being alone is making me reflect on a lot of family and emotional matters that I'm not prepared to confront yet, so I'm feverishly cleaning my house to keep my mind and body occupied. Nonetheless, I know it could be a lot worse. Story 20. It seems like this one's shaping up to be a tough one. My mother has decided she hates Christmas, and my father has always been apathetic about the whole thing. There's just one present under the tree. It's from one of my dad's employers to him. Meanwhile, my boyfriend is 3,000 miles away. Adding to that, the birth control I started a week ago is throwing my emotions completely out of whack. I find myself crying at the drop of a hat, and I'm scared I might push my boyfriend away because of it. Every time I mention Christmas, my mother gets really angry at me. I wonder what's worse, having Scrooge as a mom or dealing with messed up hormones during the holidays. Story 21. Today is definitely turning out to be awful. A few weeks ago, my wife mentioned feeling like we were losing the passion in our relationship. Today, I noticed on our phone bill that she exchanged over 4,000 messages with some guy she works with during the month of November, around the time she started becoming distant. Here's the catch. I proposed to her exactly 1 year ago today, and she's my second wife. The first one cheated on me while I was in Iraq. To hell with this. Story 22. Last year, my grandma, who lived with us, lost her battle with cancer at 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve. It was definitely the worst Christmas ever. With my grandma gone, all of the adults, including me, were grieving. We had to hide it so that the children didn't figure out what was going on. It's extremely hard to conceal your grief 10 minutes after your grandma passed away, just so that kids can open their toys. Story 23. The worst I can remember is when I was 10. I wrote a letter to Santa asking him to help my mom quit smoking. I believe it was around then that DARE started. Naturally, my mom read the letter and took me aside, instructing me never to bring that up with her again. That's how I found out there was no Santa. I'm 21 now and she's still smoking. A couple of months ago, she mentioned planning to quit this winter, but I'll believe it when I see it. Man, that smoke isn't Santa approved. It's all about chimney fumes, not nicotine puffs. Wishing you all the happiest Christmas ever. If you want to watch more stories of good stuff gone totally wrong, stick around for What Was Nice Until Idiots Ruined It. Story 2 is insane. Don't miss it.